No, stay here. All right, just quickly, I'm going to go through a few questions from previous exams. This was from last year's exam, so your semester 1 exam. You know, expect something similar to this where you'll have to draw a box plot in your assessment. Now, of course, next week we're going to do Test B from last year, so don't go ahead and do Test B. We'll do it as practice next week because it is on Connect. Sorry?
When is the test?
The test is on Wednesday next week. All right, now first of all, we're going to have a look at this question and we're going to, I know that I've shown you how to do everything on a calculator, but you will not be able to bring a CAS calculator or use your CAS calculator in your test because we want... Sorry?
Can you use a normal calculator?
Scientific, yes. Okay, so of course you'll need a scientific calculator because you'll need to calculate mean and things like that. So the life in months of a particular kind of battery, thankfully it's been ordered for us. We need to find the mean upper quartile and lower quartiles. Now for starters, what we need to do is we need to count how many data points we have. Well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. If it's odd, it is quite easy, isn't it? We know we have a middle value, but what we need to do is, first of all, we need to, of course, order it, which it is, and the middle is in between what? The 7th and 8th value? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Okay, so we are halfway between that. Thankfully, they're the same value. So what is the median? The median is 6. Okay, now, of course, we need to find the upper quartile. Now, doing it by hand, obviously it's going to take longer if you've got more data points. But if we split that in half, like so, I've got my first half, if you like, is this side of that line, and my second half is this side of the line. Now, my quartile 1 is going to be equal to the median or the middle of the first half. Okay, now of course that time in the first half there are an odd number of values. So rather than finding the middle of two values, we know that the middle is going to be this, isn't it? So therefore the quartile 1 is equal to 4. Quartile 3 then, we are doing the same thing for the second half, which is the middle of that, which is what? It's 8, isn't it? Quartile 3, which is 8. We've now found the median, upper and lower quartiles by hand. Now, of course, we could go ahead and sketch a box plot by using the calculator, and it's nice to do that. I want you to familiarise yourself with the calculator, but in your test assessment, you won't be able to do it. But we've got 3 3s, 2 4s, a 5 and a 6, just to show you again, so it's on video. Of course, we enter... I might just do it this way. So, if you want to do there, you go to the table screen. 3 3s, 2 4s. We've got a 5 and 3 6s. A 7, an 8, an 8, a 9 and a 17. Okay, now what we then do is we give it a logical name, which is, we'll just call it months. Now what do? We go to the home screen, and where do we go now? There we go. The pink icon. And we are selecting months. Now that's going to create what we call a dot plot, but of course we don't want that. We want to go to the menu, and we want to go to plot type, and we want to go to a box plot. Now, of course, we can see here that the quartile 1, yes, we can verify that we've just found that as 4. The median was 6. The quartile 3 was 8. And what does this little... it's an outlier. Now, of course, we can do that on the calculator, but I'm going to show you how to do that by hand. All right. So, what is the interquartile range? Well, the interquartile range is, as abbreviated, is IQR is equal to Q3 minus Q1, which is equal to 8 minus 4, which is equal to 4. Now, just bearing in mind that try to show your working where possible, because if you make a mistake, I might be able to give you some marks. Do any of the values appear to be outliers? Well, what we've got to do is, and you might refer to in your assignment, we had a lower boundary. And the lower boundary of an outlier exists. We need to know what quartile 1 is. And we want to find out to the left of that, smaller values, we want to multiply the interquartile range by 1.5 and subtract that from the quartile 1. So quartile 1 is 4. Subtract 1.5 times the interquartile range, which is 4, which is equal to 4 minus 6, which is equal to minus 2. Now, as it turns out, are any of those values that value or smaller? No. So therefore, there's no lower boundary outlier. However, if I go to Q3, the calculator verified that we had an outlier. Q3 plus IQR times 1.5. And my third quartile was 8, wasn't it? And that is 8 plus 1.5 times 4, which was 8 plus 6, which is equal to 14. Now, my upper boundary, so it says, do any of the values appear to be outliers? And you say yes. 17 is an outlier, as it is greater than our upper boundary of outliers, which is greater than 14. Let me just pause this because let go. All right, now what you need to do is draw a box plot. Now, what do you need for the box plot? You need quartile 1. We need quartile 2, which is the median. Quartile 3 we also need. And we also need, I guess, the interquartile range we can find from a box plot, but we know those already. We've found those already. And we also need to know what our maximum and minimum values are, like so. And of course, we don't. The maximum and the minimum values do not include the outlier. Okay. Now, first of all, our quartile 1 was 4, wasn't it? So this is basically what we call, this is our box here. Starts at 4 and our box plot goes to quartile 3, which was 8, wasn't it? So we draw a box, and of course you would use a ruler and you would rule this up nicely. Looks like so. The median, of course, and it doesn't always look like this, but the median is at 6. It's not always in the middle. Sometimes you find the median is closer to the quartile 3 or closer to quartile 1. But in this case, it is at 6 and it's halfway between 4 and 8. Our maximum value without an outlier is what? Without an outlier? 9. So we've got the box, and this is what we call the whisker. The whisker comes out, and the whisker looks like so. And it goes like that to our maximum value, which is 9. Our minimum value was 3. So it goes there to 3. That's not an outlier, so that's okay. And, of course, we want to sketch the outlier, which was what, 17? And 17 is out here. Okay, we could put a little circle or a cross. We could say that that's our outlier, and for some reason outlier. Now, importantly, when you're doing this, make sure you use a ruler. So please bring a ruler to your assessment. And of course, if I wanted to say from this, I've got quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3, and of course this distance here is the interquartile range. So if I was given a graph of this and I was asked to find the interquartile range, the interquartile range is that distance, which is of course 8 minus 4, which is 4. All right, so that's for a question from last year's exam. Now what I'd like to, now that would be worth 2 marks. I guess you've already done a lot of the working, so given that it's ruled up and everything's there in order, that would be 1 mark. And of course that you've also shown your minimum and maximum values and that everything matches up. Okay, so not that bad, I hope. Now I'm going to just pause this here and let you guys copy that down if you need to. This was from another exam. This is from the extended response section of another exam, and we can see there that we've got, with box plots, we can have more than one box plot on a diagram. In this case, we've got 2 classes. Now, it says here that 2 classes sat the mathematics test and the results are shown. What type of data is it? Is it categorical or is it numerical?
It is numerical.
Numerical. And of course, this is their raw number. In other words, the average, or sorry, the median for class A was
35.
yeah, it looks to me as though it's 35. What could you then say? It says here which class, I think this is worth 4 marks overall. Which class did better overall?
Class A.
Okay, so first of all, we would say that Class A performed better overall, and of course we have to give some reasons. For example, number 1, we can say that the median of Class A, was higher, and we can say that it's approximately 35. It looks to be 35 out of whatever. That's what can you say to me about this value here? What does this represent? Quartile 3. Yeah, so therefore we could say that quartile 3 is equal to 40. And what does that mean? It means that 75% of the students got 40 or less. In other words, we can say that 75% of students,
Why is it 47.5%?
because we'll get to, 1 sec. 75% of students scored 40 or less. And of course this compares to a smaller value. If you think about it, let's think about where's the middle of the data. The middle of the data is that. In other words, 50% of Class A are here, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, of course, quartile 3 is 75%. So 75% of the data is that.
So then what would quartile 1 be?
So therefore, 25% of the students scored 40 or above, didn't they? So we could also say they scored 40 or above for Class A. Another thing we can say is what? But could I just ask you, who got the highest score? Class A or Class B?
Class B.
Class B. So you can see here that over here we can say that we had some top performers. We had a top performer over here. But when we're comparing the 2 classes, guys, when we're comparing the 2 classes, we can say that, well, let's have a look over here. We can say that 25% of the student, we can say here that quartile 1 here is much higher. Quartile 1 for A is much higher than Class B. In other words, the bottom 25% of students, you can say the bottom 25% of Class A scored, what, about 30 or less? Whereas if we had a look at the bottom 25% of Class B, it's probably, what, more like 25? Okay? So, look, I've given a few. It says here, make at least 3 comparisons. So we've done that. Okay? You'd get a mark for obviously talking about that A is the better overall. You'd also get a mark for saying that the median of Class A was higher. You'd also get a mark for perhaps referring to quartile 3 and quartile 1. Okay? You had a question, Aidan?
Will we, for part 2, will we make our, the last question, like, similar to this?
Yep.
So, will it be like, say, 75% of the days were for...
Not going to hurt if you comment on the Boxplot rather than just do one. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. You had a question over there. Resume. Now, we have a stem and leaf plot here. Of course, you guys can see back-to-back ones. Importantly, we have a key, don't we? When you guys ever have to sketch one or create one, you have a key. First of all, how many students in this exam? Well, remember that the stem matches up with the leaf. So we have 3 here. We have 3 plus 7 makes 10, plus another 9 makes 19, plus 6 makes 25, plus 5 makes 30. Okay, so we have 30 students who sat the exam. That would just be worth a mark. What is the range? Well, the range is the highest value minus the smallest value, which is 92 subtract 56, which of course is equal to 36. Pretty straightforward, hopefully. Now, what was the median? Well, we've got 30 values. Shh. So the median is halfway between the 15th and the 16th value. So we've got 3 plus 7 makes 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. Thankfully, the good thing about that is it's ordered. So we can say that the median is halfway between those, which is what? 75 plus 76 over 2, or halfway between those is 75.5. What percentage of students scored below 65? Well, below 65 is what? We've got to have a look at this. How many of those? We've got 3 plus 3. So we've got 6 students out of 30. Now let's express that as a fraction. Yes. Well, what's
15 divided by 3? Exactly.
Isn't that 1 over 5?
Oh, I said that, which is 25%. 20%.
It's 20% because I've got to multiply it by 100, which is equal to, because that's going to convert it to a percentage. Thanks, guys. I'm almost finished. All right. So I've been through 3 various questions. I've been through a stem and leaf. I've also been referred to a box plot where you have to actually do some analysis. And finally, creating a box plot, which involves us finding the upper and lower boundaries, finding the interquartile range, and sketching it. Sketching it, our box, and sketching the whiskers. Of course, this here being the box with the quartile 1, 2 and 3, and the whiskers with the maximum value, minimum value, and consideration of the outlier. I'm going to stop there just for the time being.